Well, hello and welcome to PM Express. And indeed, today we have one big topic. And I just believe it's just going to be part one of just the topic. And I hope the production will actually give us a day in a week that every day we talk about this issue, because ever since I was growing up, I have had problems with valuation. And indeed, it seems to be a mystery where people complain that, number one, their values have been dropped from the sky because they bought a car, it was scrap, was only $400. By the time it gets to Ghana, but put all the duties together, it's like $4,000. Some just walk away and say, you know what, you can just keep it. Where are all these prices coming from and discrepancies? You have issues where people claim, look, I brought the same item the same week and I had to pay differently. Somebody says, look, I cleared my last container in August. In September, when I brought the second container, it was like miles ahead. How are the customs officers at the ports arriving at these valuations? Indeed, with cars, there are international books, the Glasses Guide, the Parker's Guide, the Green Book, which covers every car, every mileage, every condition, and tells you that, look, this is a Toyota, it's 5 years old, it has approximate mileage, and therefore it should be X amount of money. By the time it comes to Ghana, you might as well have bought a new car. Where are all these prices coming from? And today we're going to have a good education on the prices. Corruption. Another thing which, as soon as you mention the port, we hear everybody wants to go to the port, because as soon as you get there within 3 months, you will roof your story building. So everybody wants to go to the port. How true is that perception? We will find out. Don't go. And I know this is an interesting topic for you. Indeed, call your other mates to tune in to Joy and listen to how it is that we get valuations here. My name is Nana Ansakwa IV, the Chief of the Little Republic of Akwamodu Masa, your favorite TV show host. When I come back, we're doing a big education on valuation at the ports. Well, before I introduce my guest, a little synopsis, valuation of goods, not a discretion of customs. Now, the collection of revenue has historically been a primary responsibility of the Customs Administration and the Ghana Revenue Authority. For a number of years, customs has actually been involved in the protection of society and other initiatives towards trade facilitation. The determination of duty rates is based on a number of factors like government tariff policy objective, which may be to rise, protect revenues, facilitate trade, revenue collection, protect domestic industry, and encourage or restrict the importation of certain goods. In determining the value of goods, origin and classification are critical factors that must be applied strictly and sequentially to the 6 methods of valuation outlined in the General Agreement on the Tariff and Trade, and not determined by the whims and caprices of custom personnel, as we all think. All WTO members have the obligation to comply and implement the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. These methods are the transaction value of imported goods, the transaction value of identical goods, the transaction value of similar goods, the deductive value, the computed value, and the flexible value method. Any good value must therefore satisfy the following principles: uniformity and certainty, fair and natural, and precludes arbitrariness and fictitiousness. To the greatest extent possible, the value should be the transaction value of the goods being valued. Customs value should be simple, equitable, and consistent with commercial practices. Valuation procedures should be of general application without the distinction between source of supply. With me in studio to break down all this big English, sat right next to me is Mr. Akoto Fechin, Chief Revenue Officer, Customs Technical Services Bureau. Akoto, is it Akwamu Akoto? Is it Akoto there?
Akoto.
Nikpe Akoto. Okay, Nikpe Akoto. We have plenty of Akotos in Akwamu too. I'm sure your great grandfather must have. And then Michael Buedi, Corporate Affairs Manager, Integrity Initiative, GII. Have you been on the show before?
No, unfortunately.
You haven't been on the show before? No. First time? Yeah. Hey, I'm Bantemsa. I'm Bantemsa. Michael's been here before, so Michael is on. So that's our customs rule here. Right. If you haven't been on the show, I'm Bantemsa. Right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
But we're looking at valuation and how we arrive at customs valuation at the port. I want to find out from you, Michael, what's GII's interest in this?
Well, GII's interest is quite simple. I mean, over the years, a lot of complaints had come up as a result of the way customs do their work. There are a lot of people
directly opposite to what I just read, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So people perceive the Revenue Authority, that is a custom division of the GRA, as being corrupt. In fact, this is confirmed by a study that GII conducted in February 2017, that we wanted to test the perception and knowledge as well as experiences of citizens on corruption. And amongst the many institutions that citizens listed as being corrupt is the custom division of the GRA. So GII thought it wise that, look, we have fought corruption in various ways. We have shot people, we have arrested people, but yet we still have this high perception of corruption. So it's about time that the strategy changes. So we rather engage with the institution. So a number of things were lined up that we were going to do. One is to create, this public awareness of the work that the various institutions do. Now, and then secondly, we will raise billboards and then point out to people that, look, these are your rights. So if you go to the health sector, they have what they call the patient's charter. So we have a similar thing at the point of entry to the various institutions. So, and the good thing is that when we engage with the custom service, they did not deny, they did not fight us, they welcomed us and said, look, and told us that they are prepared to collaborate with us so that we can bring about the needed changes. So they even gave us a place to put up the signboard that gives the public education, that gives the public where to report to if they feel that they've been cheated, and then also they make themselves available to programs like this. And so this is where GII is coming in. GII wants to use a different approach to controlling corruption, and our approach is working together with the various public institutions to educate the public on how to deal with corruption if they find any.
And so far, what is it that people have a mind block? I mean, I'm yet to, even though I haven't had any personal dealings with the port. I mean, it's just I almost believe the stories I hear. I've never been to the port to clear anything, but I'm inclined to believe the stories I hear. I have a lady watching who's complaining bitterly that she got her first container somewhere, I think August, and then I think somewhere this month or just last month it came for, I think the first container was 40-footer, and went for a 20-footer and was now more expensive than the I mean, I have stories like that, and then I have no reason to believe that she's lying to me. So I'm really personally interested in this show to see if I'll be convinced that listen, these stories are not true or there's some misunderstanding. Do you find people have blocked their minds like I have, or people come in open-minded and walk away satisfied?
Well, Nana, I've had a personal experience. Last week I was on a flight from Brussels, and there was a huge argument. I mean, we argued extensively by people who were bringing in goods, and they believed that a lot of things had changed. The cost of clearing goods had even gone up. They attribute it to corruption. They attribute it to whatever, So there is that general feeling that something has gone wrong or something is going wrong at the port. So it is not that the lady may not be telling the truth. But you see, you need to understand the issues. You need to understand the problems. I mean, from our standpoint, we have categorized the problems in three basic means. We have the administrative challenges that the customs face. There are the individual challenges that we, the importers or the citizens that engage with them, also bring. And then also there are the legislative challenges that needs to be addressed. But in order to be able to understand all these challenges that brings forth these perception, you need to hear from them. And so we said, look, let us not come and speak for them or speak against them. Let us not put them on the carpet. We all talk about, let's build strong institutions. What better way to build a strong institution than to build it from within? So we are here with the big men from the customs to tell us what is it that is informing this perception.
I go to my country name. My country name.
Yes.
Before we even go through everything, I mean, one would ask, what is valuation all about? What informs the figures that you arrived at?
Come out with.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nana. I'm very happy to be here, and we are grateful that you've given us the opportunity to tell our story to our country people. Most often people don't understand what they do.
No.
That's why they come up with a lot of things that our colleagues hear, or you also hear about us. And we are very grateful that Ghana Integrity Initiative has given us this opportunity to explain what we do to the general public. In the first case, when we talk of customs valuation, we have various systems for determining customs revenue for the nation. We have basically three systems. We have the ad valorem system, that is a percentage of the value. We have the specific, and we have the alternate. As a country, Ghana, we have adopted the ad valorem system.
Ad valorem.
Ad valorem system, which implies that for every consignment coming into the country, there should be a value. Then we can impose a percentage of that value as duties to government. So because of the ad valorem system that we are using, we need to determine a customs value for every consignment coming into the country. And when we talk of the specific system, we are talking of a value based on the attributes of an item. If you take an item like rice, the government can decide that for every kilo of rice, take 1 pesewa as duty for the nation. So it means that if you are bringing a bag of rice, which is what, 50 kilos, the government will take 50 pesos as duty on that kilo, 50 kilos of rice. But in this ad valorem system, we will determine the value for that rice. As of now, we impose an import duty of 20% on imports of rice. So for the import duty, 20% of the value that we determined for that 50 kg of rice.
I think that's where the conflict comes in.
Yes.
As in, how do I go and buy rice for, let's say, $100?
Yes.
How do you determine the value? I bought it for $100.
It's very simple, Nana. By, you know, the world trade is regulated by World Trade Organization. So, you know, at a certain point in time, we had two main systems for determining customs value. And because of conflict and other things, when two countries go into conflict on trade-related issues, they report to World Trade Organization. And before the early 50s, we had a European group which were applying a certain system for determining customs value. And the Americans and their allies also had another system for determining customs value. Fortunately, we fell within the European group. So we're using what we call the Brussels definition of value from the early 1950s. That one, what was happening was that when you bring your goods, customs can go to the market, go and survey and find out how much these goods were selling. Then they pick that price and come and give that value to you as the value for the customer. WTO realized that that system was not fair, was not neutral, and was not very predictable. So they commissioned studies for an acceptable system to be used. So the European group was commissioned, and they came out with what we call a valuation code at a certain point in time, which will make valuation neutral, acceptable, and predictable. And the BDV system was deemed to be notional, because we can just, that's when customs can just decide to impose any value on people.
I have about 1 million questions for you, so I'll be pushing
fine.
you. Let me take, for instance, a car.
Before then, Nana, let me land on this issue.
Okay.
So they have arrive at a more acceptable system of valuing goods. So in 1995, the GATT Article 7 was came into force in 1995.
The GATT Article
7, which is the agreement on customs valuation.
Okay.
That is what we are using now to value goods. Ghana started the implementation of this GATT Article 7 in the year 2000.
And it covers everything.
It tells us the way we should arrive at customs value. And that's what we are using all over the world. Now we don't have two systems any longer, the American group and the European group. Now we have this GATT Article 7 guiding the determination of custom value all over the world. Once you are a member of the WTO, you are bound to apply this GATT Article 7. That's what we are using as a country.
Most of your car dealers always get upset that the duties are going up, because they buy, let's say, a Toyota Corolla, maybe it's a 2003 model. You go on the internet and it's $600, $700, $800. Those that have been accident cars, even less. But when they come to Tema, it's a different ball game altogether. Where from that value?
Yes, I heard, and I'm happy you are asking this, and I plead that our viewers follow what we do. By law, the government has prescribed to us what we should do in determining the value of vehicles coming into the country. We have two categories of vehicles, the new vehicles and the used vehicles. I know my country people are more particular about the value for used vehicles. So let me just veer on to the used vehicles. Yes. If you are very conversant with the customs law at 891, the Customs Act 2015, Section 16 prescribes to us how we should determine the customs value for used vehicles. And what are we supposed to do? when you bring in your vehicles, you know, the issue of equity, fairness, neutrality, and other things. That's how come the government has given us a set of rules and regulations to use in determining the value for used vehicles. Like you said, somebody would have gone and bought a vehicle for $200. Somebody saw that same vehicle and bought it for $1,000, and others would have bought it at even higher prices. That doesn't mean when you bring it into the country, we should accept those values. And one difficulty that we have with the implementation of the CVA, Custom Valuation Agreement, that's the WTO agreement, is the valuation of used items. You agree with me that used items, the degree of usage is a big problem. Like your phone that you have, Nana. If I have that same phone, the way I may use that phone may be different from the way you use the phone. The degree of usage, depreciation, handling, and other things will affect the phone that you have, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So valuing that phone will be very difficult for us as customs. So what the government has said is, for every vehicle that is manufactured, you know, we have the manufacturing year vehicles and the the other type of vehicles from the European countries. For the vehicles coming from the Americans and their allies, like Canada, Mexico, and other things, they all have recommended prices when they are manufactured. You might have heard of NADA, National Association of Auto Dealers. Mm-hmm. That's the NADA. For cars coming from Americas, Mexico, and Canada, you get the prices of all these vehicles in that NADA.
No, but you're talking about the recommended new price.
Yes,
but
that's what we call manufacturers' suggested recommended price.
That's it, but no, but we are talking about used cars. So, no,
yes,
so why don't you?
I'm explaining.
Okay.
So when you bring in the Toyota Corolla that you mentioned, yeah, with the chassis number or the VIN, we were able to determine the recommended retail price of that vehicle.
Okay.
We pick the recommended price, retail price of that vehicle. And the law, Section 60, prescribes how we should depreciate that vehicle based on the year of manufacture. And the price that we pick from the NADA is dependent on the cubic capacity, on the year of manufacture, the origin of the vehicle, and even sometimes certain features that the car has. These people don't know. When you take the Corolla, we have the LE and the CE. They are not the same. And when you take a normal car, we have the standard vehicle, and then more or less customized vehicles. When we take the chassis number, we are able to decode the chassis number and tell whether this car has certain special features. And it is embedded in the value of that vehicle. If you want something customized, it goes with what? A price. And that price is dutiable. You have to disclose it to customs for duty purposes. So when you take that car, by our law, when the car is not older than 6 months, that's for next year, 2018 vehicles are already out now. From 1st January to 30th June, any 2018 vehicle that comes into the country is deemed to be a new vehicle. So that one will not apply any form of depreciation So what we do is bring your invoice. If you buy a vehicle, you have an invoice. We use the invoice value. We assess it if it's acceptable, because we have areas we can look to confirm whether the value, the price you are giving is right or not. We use that value and then we calculate the duties. That one doesn't go with any level of depreciation. But if it's more than 6 months, between 6 months and 1.5 years, we depreciate it by 15%. And then that gives us what we call the home delivery value. And by our law, the basis of our taxation is the CIF, cost, freight, and insurance. So after we have determined the home delivery value, by taking the recommended suggested price and depreciating it, we'll add the freight, we'll add the insurance. That's what the law asks that we should do. And for vehicles coming to from Europe, we have the Euro tax. That one too has recommended or suggested prices for all these vehicles. We take the vehicles and apply the appropriate depreciation to them. And then the Asian too will have software. We take it, we are able to get the values and apply the necessary depreciations to the vehicle before the duties and taxes are determined. So for the vehicles, it's by law. There is nothing anybody can do with customs, unfortunately.
I have more on the vehicles, but before I go, just a quick one before I go on break and find out from GII. Is there any way we can, if I'm bringing a fridge or something, I can log onto a website and get a close estimate of, look, if I send these things, it's code C or code F, and therefore I'll be expected to pay within this range rather than always being surprised?
Well, you see, Nana, amongst the challenges that the customs and also by extension the country faces as the issue of individuals coming in. So the interface between individuals, both the customs officers and also the general public, are also issues that brings about a lot of perception of corruption. In listening to officer, you realize that there are elements of discretion, here and there, a little bit here that you have to depreciate. You have to, so there's an individual who would have to. The good thing is the introduction of the paperless thing that allows automation of the processes. We are hoping and praying that these automation of the processes will work efficiently, and once it does that, the element of the human factor would be reduced considerably, and we'll be able to deal with corruption. The other thing is also lack of education, and which makes a program and your platform very important, that we must consistently educate the general public, because you see, education is key if we are going to understand this. Let's not forget that there are issues of illiteracy amongst our population. So many of the people I talked about who we were arguing when we were on the flight are relatively very low, in our where we come from, what's the service, very low education, and therefore they are just being emotional, and then as the argument carries on, then it will veer into the usual politicking. So if we are able to deal with the ancillary issues, the issues of education, the issues of illiteracy, the issues of discretion and the likes, and we're able to automate, then Nana, like you rightly said, if I can sit in the comfort of my home, put in the chassis number and the year of manufacture, and be able to determine at least as close as possible, the possible payments that I would have to make, I believe strongly that the issue of corruption will be minimized.
Well, on the subject of illiteracy, when it comes to, I'm a fairly educated man, but as far as valuation is concerned, I'm a complete illiterate. When they come back from the break, I want to come back. Should I disagree with the values given me? What do I do? And we always hear about things. Oh, they changed the values and they reduced it. Are these things happening, and how did they happen? Stay tuned. We're coming back. Well, I told you this is one of the programs that probably need to dedicate, just one day, probably every Thursday, as Customs Understanding Week or Customs Understanding Day, until such time, we get the beef of it. Because you always send an agent, they come back and they tell you the stories, and you have no choice but to believe in the stories. Well, joining us now is Assistant Commissioner Seidu Idrisu, who's in charge of preventative enforcement in the GRA.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. But before I go to Assistant Commissioner, let me stay with Chief Revenue Officer Akoto Fechin. I lumbered the whole question up to you before we went on the break. I wanted to find out, if I, decide to lower the prices of my invoice a bit, buy the laptop and come and tell, look, it was 10 CDs and not 100 CDs. Yeah. And then, you come and say it's 50 CDs and I don't agree. I mean, how do you even value the goods?
Yeah, Nana, thank you very much. Like I mentioned earlier, we've spoken about valuation of vehicles. And the goods is also another aspect that is very important. By the WTO valuation agreement, what we're supposed to do is, the basis of it is what we call the transaction value. And what does it mean? It means the price actually paid or payable when goods are sold for export at the country of exportation to the country of importation. In this situation, at any point in time, Ghana is the country of what? Importation. Customs, we deal with what we call international trade, trade across our borders. So once you buy any goods outside the country and you are bringing it in, you have to declare them to customs. And one very big difficulty we face is, Nana, you go and sit with your supplier or the seller of goods and you agree on a value or a price between the two parties. But there is a third party that is interested in whatever you are doing, and that party is customs. You are supposed to come and declare to customs the price you agreed on these goods. Most often, let's ask ourselves, how sincerely have we carried out these duties and responsibilities? The law, the agreement, WTO GATT agreement says that if you declare the price at which you bought your goods, then we should use that to assess your duties and taxes. If we have every doubt, every right to doubt the value you are declaring to us, then we apply the other alternate measures. You read out in your introduction the various, we have 6 main valuation methods. The very first one is the transaction value, that's the method 1. If we doubt, we have a right to doubt, and we doubt the truth and accuracy of what you are declaring to us, then we apply the other alternate methods. That's how come the issue of falsification of invoices, customs not accepting your values, and other things coming.
Briefly, we need more time.
Yes.
Briefly, I mean, everybody knows an iPhone is probably like $1,000.
Yes.
Averagely.
Yeah.
What if I go to the manufacturer and he says, "Look, Nana, you are a chief. I really like you, so buy it at $500."
Yes, Nana, we accept these things. Just produce evidence to us to show that, you see, you bought this phone at $500. Convincing evidence that you bought this phone at $500, Nana will accept it.
And you value,
yes, that is why you don't expect that every consignment coming into the country should have the same duties or the same values. We look at what the time and season of purchase of the goods. They play a very big factor. And then what we call the quantity you buy. And then the commercial level. At what level did you buy your goods? People buy at the retail level. Some people are what we call sole concessionaires. They buy at a different price. Some go to buy at the retail price at the retail level, the prices are different. That's why people should not sit and say, this man brought his container at this value, so mine should also be at that value. Professionally, we don't do any such thing. That's why if you ask me, if you are bringing a container of these phones, how much duty do I have to pay? Unlike cars, where we can use the methods that I spoke about earlier to determine an estimated value of the duties that you have to pay on your cars. Goods, it is difficult for us to do any such thing. We have to assess whatever you are declaring to us to be able to determine the value of the goods before duties and taxes are levied on them.
This one is for sale. This is another one that has always been a problem.
Yes.
Detention, seizure, forfeiting. We hear it all the time.
Forfeiture.
And sometimes we hear that, well, I was supposed to pay 1,000 cedis, I couldn't pay, but I hear it was even sold for 2 cedis or God knows what. But what would happen for customs to now seize some of these goods? Forfeiture and all that.
Nana, thank you so much. Those are very common terms in customs: detention, seizure, and forfeiture. Generally, we detain goods when we have certain doubts about their admissibility. We bring the goods, and for some reasons, we need to do some further investigations or to determine whether these goods, we deal with 3 major types of goods. Those which are allowed to float in the system. You can bring any quantity you can without any control. There are goods that are controlled. You need a permit or a license before you bring it in. And this has something to do with either the public health or security. And then there are those which are, completely banned. You can't bring them inside. The law says you can't bring these goods across or outside. So when you bring goods and we still have some doubts, we will detain it and then do some preliminary investigations. If the goods, or if you don't pay the duty and the time that you are allowed to pay the duty, we will detain it. So for some reasons, that's why we detain goods. It's just for us to, follow up with some action. But when it comes to seizure, it means an offense has been committed. The offense could be that the goods was not allowed to come in, or it was allowed but you have failed to fulfill your obligations, like he was explaining. If you have not paid your duty, we will seize it. If you try to smuggle it or conceal it in a way, it will be seized. But seizure does not necessarily mean that it has been forfeited to the state. There is a process, because when you seize your good, the law allows you to petition both to customs, and even if you feel you don't get a good hearing, you can go beyond that to the courts. But forfeiture, to the state is when the last, stage of it, where the seized goods have, are eventually given to the state, and that is where the state, we can dispose it in any way, by auction or any other way that the state decides.
I'm going to go to the perception of corruption, which has bedeviled the institution. But two lines, if it's possible. We hear that, there's these cars driving, they haven't paid their duty, so they've been seized. How did they get to the point where it's in somebody's house before, registered and everything, before they come back and get seized?
Yeah, it is just because sometimes we don't understand the system. Vehicles enter the country through the various frontiers. They can come by sea, where it is a little difficult to evade taxes. And then they can come by land, where a number of reasons. Ghana is a member of ECOWAS, and we have signed protocols that allows the free movement of people and goods. This has been one of the protocols that have been greatly abused by Ghanaians and other nationals. Because the law is saying that if you are coming from another country into Ghana, within the West African sub-region, you only need to prove that you are, a citizen of that country, or you are resident in that country. If you are a Ghanaian resident outside, you can still come with your car. And then you need to have an ECOWAS insurance system known as the brown card. and you are given a period. The protocol say you can be given up to 3 months, depending on what you are coming to do. So you can be given a day, you can be given 1 month, but you can't give you on the list more than 3 months. But Ghanaians and other nationals have abused this. They bring in cars. Ghanaians send their cars to other countries, tell them and they put some short documents on it. They get somebody and pay him to drive it into the country. He drives it and leaves it and take a flower car the next day, a flower bus, and go back. And they are able to get people who will register these cars forcefully for them, and they are driving in town. In that way, we are not magicians. Until we catch him, we will not be able to know that we will know that this car has not passed back. But how do you track it? It is only when, and car is not something you can hide. We will definitely get you.
I see.
Yeah.
And the issue of corruption.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the President Mills, God bless his soul, coming to the customs and screaming up and down. And there's this story that as soon as you get to the port, within 3 days, you're going to roof your house. I mean, where are all these stories coming from?
Well,
there's no smoke without fire.
Yes, corruption and customs is an age-old perception. And even though customs as an institution and government as a whole have done a lot to make sure that these issues of integrity is raised up, a lot of people still think that customs is always corrupt. In fact, I will say that most of them will carry the burden of others. The port is not just customs. The port has so many players, from the custodians of the port, that is, in the case of the seaport, is Gapoha, to all the other players who play the game. We have, the shipping lines, and even with customs, we don't deal directly with people.
23 agents.
Yes, we deal with clearing agents. Because
23 agents.
in fact, the last time there was a count, the agencies at the port were about 23. But yet, everybody thinks that the port is controlled by customs. And in any case, when your goods arrive at the port, it is only when you have paid and come to take your goods that customs come into contact with the goods. It is a perception that is based mostly on ignorance. And we are carrying the burden of others. Anybody who commits anything, if an agent goes to tell you that customs says, I should bring this, and you give it to him, as far as you are concerned, it is customs. Whether it actually comes to a customs officer or not, that is another thing. That is not to say, in every house we believe there is a Mensa, but there are so many Mensas who are carrying the name of customs, who are not actually from customs.
Is it that it wasn't bothering you in the past? Because you seem to have ignored the noise for too long.
Well, you are correct, because most often we are busy working and we have never reacted. Most often we don't come out to tell our story. And this has been one of the problems that we have tried to survive in, but we now believe that it is better to come out and let the public know, because ignorance is one of the reasons why a lot of people are even deceiving people in the name of customs. Majority of people are being deceived in the name of customs because we don't get the contact between importers and customs is very rare.
Let me come to you, sir. Exemptions and concessions. Who decides that this thing is exempted from tax? Who decides that?
Thank you, Dada. This is another area where we need to educate our citizens. Exemptions are things or items that are by statute not supposed to pay duties. By statute, by our law, they are not supposed to attract duties on them. And by our constitution, apart from what is in our statutes, like, let me cite an example. If you take our personal affairs, what they are saying is, you have lived outside and you are coming back home, the items, your items that you have used.
The everyday items that you use.
What you
So
call,
far.
yes, and other things. You can bring them, and by statute, you can take them free of duty. Okay. And then also, certain designated institutions are also by law not supposed to pay duties, diplomatic missions, and then some technical assistance that we get. Besides that, our parliament can decide to remove the payment of duties for whatever reason for anybody at any point in time, for any institution at any point in time. These are what we are calling exemptions. But concessions are like rebated rates for certain category of goods. What happens is, if an item by our HS, our tariff, is supposed to attract 10%, the government can decide based on this policy that that particular item should come at a rebated, a concessionary rate of 5%. It means that item is coming in at a concessionary duty rate. And that's mostly for manufacturers. Manufacturers.
Raw materials.
Raw materials that they use for manufacturing, they attract a concessionary duty rate. And why? For government policy to be very effective. They decide that instead of paying the full duties on the items, let's give a rebate on the item so that it makes, you can create jobs, you can manufacture at a reasonable price for our citizens. That's purely on government policy.
All too soon. That's what time will allow us. But behind the scenes, the gentlemen have agreed that anytime we call them, they'll come. And we have to call them because what if you find out all these trucks that are loaded and supposedly going to Burkina Faso and disappear in thin air? I mean, how do we track them down? How do we make sure that they've crossed the border and that they are not taking advantage? We need to get a better understanding and then go back into the port and get better valuation. I think cars will be one whole show, do one whole show on cars, because as for cars, I'm an authority, so I really know the valuation of cars. But take your pens and paper. GRA hotline, if you have any issues, the GRA hotline is 050 621 055, 050 621 055, or 054 382 7507, 054 382 7507. Now this is the best one. I'm sure this will be blocked. For corruption reports, if you suspect, if you feel, if you presume there's any corruption going on, it's 0800 100 250, 0800 100 250, or 0800 100 251, I think. 0800 100 251. For corruption, call these numbers. And I will definitely get these gentlemen in here. They've agreed to, so that we have a bit more understanding on how the port works, because it's businesses depend on it, markets, trade depend on it, and our understanding of it will bring a lot of peace. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time. And when the conversation is interesting, time flies. Time flies. But we'll be back to do this all over again. That I can promise you. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you.